So I think we all remember this one book last year. This one. Yeah, this one. Do you remember this? Do you remember how it wrecked me because it was so good? Today we're going to be talking about ACOMAF by Sarah J. Maas, aka A Court of Mist and Fury, aka A Court of Feels and Sadness. Why? This is the sequel to ACOTAR, or A Court of Thorns and Roses, which came out last year. This came out at the beginning of May, and I finally finished it, like, a week after its release. And yet there are still people who haven't finished it yet, so I feel pretty good. I'm pretty on top of the world. So I didn't get a chance to make a rubric for this one because my printer is away, not here at the moment, so I just, forgot that. So you can see my actual rubric down below when I actually finish it. I think it's going to be pretty high, but there's always a possibility that it'll get lowered by, like, problematic stuff, so keep that in mind. But for my initial thoughts, if you don't want spoilers, I loved it. I loved it so much, even though it was slow going at the beginning, and I was very reluctant to change. I did change. I did come around, and yes. So, if you, don't know what these are about, so ACOTAR is a fantasy new adult retelling of Beauty and the Beast with fae and fairies and the Sarah J. Maas twist. This doesn't really have necessarily like a retelling to it. A lot of people liken it to Hades and Persephone, and I would kind of agree with that, but there was no, like, advertising of this is a such and such retelling, so you just gotta take it for what it is. And what it is awesome. Now, I know there are gonna be people out there who are like, no, Jenna, it's not awesome. We got some critical things in here that I don't appreciate. And I see them. I am not ignoring them. I know they're there. I just enjoyed it too much to be brought down by that criticalness. So I will discuss some of the criticalness. I will discuss all my fave things about this book. But you have to read it before you can do that because I don't want to spoil you. And I know you may be like, but Jenna, I hated ACOTAR. I want to be spoiled. No, you don't. Don't you say that. Just trust me and read the book first and then come back. Here we go! So ACOMAF was a book that I was very scared for, very excited for it, but very scared for. So when I was starting it out, before I even started it, right around release time, I couldn't get it on time because of finals and moving and stuff. And so all these people on Twitter and Goodreads and everywhere were like, oh my gosh, ACOMAF. And half of them were really excited about it. Like on Tumblr, everybody was posting and I just did not want to see that. And then the other half, which are mostly on Twitter, everyone was like, not happy. They were like, do I have to read this? It's trash. I hate Sarah J. Maas. And everybody was getting fed up with, like, the love triangle, and people were going crazy, and I was like, guys, just let me read it in peace, please. I loved it, and it was similar to a lot of things that I had read, but also different enough that I knew it was Sarah J. Maas, and it was great, and I loved it, but everyone was talking about it, and so I, like, raced to finish, and then no one had finished. None of my friends had finished, except for Chammy. Praise the Lord for Chammy. We had a nice Voxer session last night to get out all our frustrations and happiness, so thanks, Cham. Let's start with the things that I didn't like, so then we can, like, flip it around and make it happy. There are about 3 things in this book that I did not appreciate, and I think they're fairly obvious from me. The first one is obviously the abusive, questionable, problematic relationships with Tamlyn and Rhys. A lot of people don't want to forgive Rhys for what he did in ACOTAR, and I fully understand that and stand by that. Like, well, Miss Feyre did not have consent, and yet Rhys went ahead and, like, did all this stuff, and I agree. I am there with you, buddy. It's not good. However, on the flip side of that, Tamlyn was also a bastard, and he was awful. But, like, it's not like I'm, like, forgiving him or, like, trying to reason with it, because I think he is, like, that's who he is, so I'm not, like, trying to justify that. It's just, Tamlyn and Rhys are problematic men, and I feel like I needed to say that, so you don't be like, Jenna, but this is abusive, why do you like it? I know. It's not healthy. I would not want any of these relationships, but I'm also not a fairy, so I don't think I'll ever have these relationships. The second thing that I didn't like kind of goes along with that, but it's of a different sort. This trope that has shown up in YA that is not always a thing, but happens more often than you think. The two boyfriends, but then one of them is a bad guy, and you're like, oh, you're so bad, I could never date you, you're evil. And then the next book, they're like, you're so tortured, and I just love you, and I'm so sorry I ever liked the other guy. Can we stop that, please? Like, I understand you do it for dramatic effect, and it works a little bit in this one, but going into it, I was like, dude, I don't want another Shatter Me. I read Shatter Me. I don't need that again. So if you ask me, they're basically all the Shatter Me characters, just more fae, and I like them more, personally. But that was the thing that I had a big problem with going into it, especially because I didn't know how she was going to make us flip. I do think, to contrast that, I do think she did a good job with this trope. I think she was justified in having Tamlyn do those things. Like, I think that's in his character to do them, so I don't have that thing against her where everybody's like, but she just makes you love the other one by trashing the first guy. No. Also, Kale was justified, but we're not going to talk about that. The third thing that I had a problem with in this book was the sex. And I know some people are going to probably hate it, and some people are probably going to be like, it's fine, whatever. I don't really have a problem with sex in books, like, from a moral standpoint or anything like that. Like, that's fine with me, but this was a little too graphic for little baby Jenna. I just was very uncomfortable the whole time, and I had to skim read most of the sex scenes, basically so I could, like, know what's happening and see if there's any, like, I love you said, but, like, I couldn't stick around for most of them because they scarred me mentally. I will never come back from this book. It was really gross. And also, on the side of that, like, I just didn't appreciate how they were always like, and then we made love under the stars, and then we made love in this field, and then he made love to me on the table, and I was like, dude, can you stop making love, because it's just too much. And I understand that's who Sarah is, like, she loves steamy things, she loves romance, she's like Selena like that, but it was hard to read. I did not enjoy it very much at all. And I don't know if that's because of who I am as a person and, like, my personal sexuality preferences or what, but I just was like, nope, stop. So let's talk about the happy things, because there were a lot of them. A lot of things that I really liked. I am Team Reese. We could get that out of the way. I know I was in the wrong last book, and it's funny because I did reread ACOTAR before ACOMAF this time, and I going out of it, I was like, I don't know how she's gonna do it, because I just love Tamlyn. He's great. He's not. Oh, how the mighty fall. I appreciated how she did it, because even though she did turn Tamlyn against us, she did it within reason, and I don't know, it was, like, fresh and new. It's not like he doesn't love her or anything like that. He just, like, is way too overprotective. And I feel like it was different in Shatter Me. Like, it didn't feel so natural. Like, this one, when she was, like, getting depressed and PTSD, I was like, all right, I can see now that Tamlyn is not healthy for her. And he may be healthy for somebody else. I'm really hoping he gets redemption in the next one, because I do think his character deserves it. And I do think he just didn't realize what was going on. So I really hope that either he finds somebody or he gets redemption, or maybe he dies and sacrifices himself. Let's see what happens with that. But I don't know. I do think it was justified, and I don't like the people being like, she just totally, like, changed his character and flipped us to the other ship. No, it was justified. I say it's justified. However, on the flip side, little Mr. Reese, my baby, I'm sorry. I confess my sins. I'm sorry. I just was blinded. And I think my biggest problem in not switching over to Reese at the end of ACOTAR was that I had stood by Tamlyn at, like, the beginning of the book, and I did really like his character. But more than anything, I just was trying to avoid this trope of, like, switching over to the bad guy because he's actually just tragic and good inside. Like, I don't like that trope, and so I didn't want it to happen, and I thought that by rejecting it, it wouldn't happen, but it did, and you saw how that worked out. So, I personally loved Reese in this book. Like, he's just so cute, and I don't really know what else I can say about him other than I was just so in love with his character, even though it's problematic, and even though sometimes I think he's a little too much. I do like his character a lot, and I was glad that I jumped ship. If you watched my Snapchat story during this whole read, because I did snap a lot of my feelings, you could see me going from, like, really, like, I hate Feyre, I don't want this to happen, to OTP for life. Let's talk about Feyre, because Feyre, I think, had the most growth as a character. Like, Rhys, we had a lot revealed about him, and he did kind of grow in that aspect. Tamlyn kind of grew more evil as the book went on, but Feyre is, like, my favorite. Oh my goodness, I just love her, and it's funny, because, again, if you watch my Snapchat story, I hated Feyre at the beginning. She was very annoying, not what I wanted. I'd say probably in part 1 was when I disliked her. And I made this description to everybody on Twitter, and I was like, Feyre is a cross between Breaking John Bella and Mockingjay Katniss, which is, like, the worst combination ever. Because we have Bella, who was like, I'm not worthy to marry you, you're too great, I don't really know how to have sex, I don't want to do this, but I want to, but I love you. And then, on the other side, we have Katniss, who is just stuck in PTSD land, where she is underneath District 13 and going through these flashbacks of the games and, like, is just losing her mind. And then, you know, that's kind of what happened to Feyre. She did change. I think in part 2 and 3, she was totally not those things. I think she became her own character at that point, and so I was really grateful for that. But, like, at the beginning, I was just so frustrated with her because she's trying to stick with Tamlyn, but she's really depressed, and she has a lot of PTSD going on, and she's not happy, and you can just tell that she's dying, and she doesn't want to do anything about it. And then she, like, gets all these opportunities from Rhys, and he saves her from the wedding, and he does all this stuff, and she's just like, nah, I'm just gonna sit. And I understand that, like, the hardest thing about it is that reading it, I did understand where she was coming from, and I could sympathize a little bit with, you know, having depression and, you know, being in that PTSD world. Not that I've had either of those things necessarily, but, like, I know what they're like. I know about them enough that I kept scolding myself because I was like, Jenna, she's just depressed. You can't, like, hate her for that. But it was really hard because she was very mopey at the beginning. However, it hit a certain point, and I don't know where this point was. It was somewhere in the Night Court while they were off, you know, gallivanting into Prithian, that I just, like, she changed, and she started eating more, and then she started mastering her powers, and then she just, killed everyone, and it was wonderful. Mainly the scene with the wolves, where she's, like, going hardcore in Valeris, I think that's what it's called, and she's, like, killing everybody who came to attack her city, and she's like, I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna kill the Autor, and I'm gonna kill you, and blah, 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 and it was just great. Also, the scene where Lucien comes to trap her, and he's like, come on, Feyre, like, let's just go back to Tamlyn, because that's what you're supposed to do, and she's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna winnow, and I'm gonna be awesome, and Rhys is gonna take me away, and it's gonna be great. Like, I really liked that scene because it showed how much she had grown as a person, but she just is so strong, and I'm trying to reason with myself and figure out who is my favorite Sarah J. Maas character, like, girl-wise, because I love Aelin, but I also love Lysandra so much, or Lysandra, or whatever her name is. I really love Feyre, like, a lot. She has a place in my heart now. I'm so excited to see what she does later. And of course, she's a High Lady. The first High Lady of the Night Court. I do wish that she had her own court. I was kind of hoping that she would not be, like, entangled with the Night Court. But, you know, the Night Court is pretty cool, so I will accept it for now. Speaking of the Night Court, I love the Night Court so much. Like, they're all just my babies. And I think I like them so much, one, because they remind me of the Lunar Chronicles, where everybody, like, paired up and everybody was badass and everybody's really cute together. But on the flip side, it also mimics Throne of Glass, I feel like, because in Throne of Glass, we have this, like, solid set of characters who are all, you know, they're friends, they're dating, what are they, who knows, and they're all just, like, kicking ass together and having fun, and I felt that vibe a lot in this book, whereas in the first one, it was more focused on just Feyre or just Tamlyn or them together. This one felt more like camaraderie type of thing, where you're like, all right, we got Cassian, who is adorable, by the way, and I hope he gets together with Nesta. Oh my gosh. And then we have Asriel, who kicks ass and is great. And then we have Morrigan, who is a beast, and I freaking love her, and I ship her and Az hardcore too. They're great. And then we have Amran, who... Amran is great. And, you know, they all just work together, and they're great, and they're cute. And then we have the sisters, and then, like, we have Tamlyn and Lucien, who we'll talk about later. But I just loved them and their banter. And it's funny because, you know, going into it, you kind of assume they're going to be, like, these Night Court people who are evil and mean and going to hurt Feyre. But then you have their first dinner together in the House of the Wind, and they're just like, come on, Feyre, we don't bite. We're really fun. And Feyre's just like, okay, all right, let's be friends, I guess. And they're just so cute, and I love them so much. They're all so tortured and beautiful and great, and it's wonderful. Amran. I want to talk about Amran really quick because I want to know, does anybody have this headcanon that she's from Aelin's world? Anybody at all? Because immediately when I read that she was, like, from another world, I was like, is this it, Sarah? Is this the connection? Because I would love if that was the connection. Like, I just have this vision of the last Throne of Glass book, and then Amran, like, is mentioned, or they're like, there's this mysterious beast in the background doing this thing, and you're like, Amran. Like, even if she doesn't play a big role or anything, like, I just want the crossover to happen. That's all I want. And I think that would be a good way to do it. So, Sarah, please listen to me and do this for me. The Spring Court. Lucien and Tamlyn. It's so hard because if you watch my other video about the first book, I was so in love with them. And I still really love them. I think they're great characters, and I think they have the potential to change. And I would like to see them redeemed, because they're not just the characters that you just throw away and say, well, now I like Rhys, so bye. Like, unlike Shatter Me, where everybody was like, alright, bye, Adam. Nobody likes you anyways. This one, I actually genuinely want happiness for Tamlyn, so I hope he gets that, because he deserves it. He's a cute little buddy. Lucien made me mad for most of the book because he just ignored Feyre and he let her deteriorate into this state and didn't stand up for himself or Feyre for Tamlyn. But I still love him, and I think he's great, and I do really appreciate that at the end of the book he's like looking at Feyre like, oh honey, I know you're lying. Tamlyn doesn't see it, but I know you're lying. Like, I'm excited for that to happen, that whole hashing out to go. I just love his character, and I loved it a lot in the first one, but in this one, him and Tamlyn both, I felt like we never got to hear their side of things. Like, they just weren't in most of the book because she's going through the Night Court, or she's stuck with Rhys, or there's just no communication. And so I was a little bit miffed that we didn't get more time hearing from them. The first time we really see Tamlyn after Feyre leaves is him betraying her at the, like, throne room of Hybern or whatever. And I felt like that was just a little bit mean, like twisting the knife just a little bit. I was expecting him to pop up in there because it seemed like it could be a good way to close out the book. But I was a little bit miffed that, like, that's what happened. I don't know if I want to talk about the ending yet because I'm just, alright, let's just talk about it and get it out of the way. So the ending. I was talking to Chammy about this, and we said that the reason we really like Sarah J. Maas books, even though, like, every part of it is really great to me, the ending is usually what makes a Sarah J. Maas book, because it's generally very unpredictable, and most of the time what happens is everything that can go wrong goes wrong, and you're stuck trying to figure out how it's going to work out, and there's, like, some semi-easy answer that happens, but not without sacrifice, not without people dying, not without very bad things and people getting hurt. And so when this ending came along, you know, I was very nervous when they went into the tower for Hybern because it just didn't, I don't know, it doesn't sound safe in general, and it seemed like it was too easy. And so then, you know, you think it's gonna be fine, you don't know how bad it's gonna get until it gets pretty darn bad. Like, first, she stabs us in the back by being like, oh, by the way, it's Jurian and the King of Hybern who know you're down here, and it was all a trap. Sorry, you have to come upstairs with us. And then they shoot Asriel, and you're like, what? Like, can you not? What? And he stays alive miraculously. But then you get to the throne room, and you're like, all right, it can't possibly get worse than this. And then Tamlyn and Lucien pop out of the shadows, and they're like, hey, how's our bargain going? Great, let's make it happen, dude. And you're just like, what? This is mean. Why would you do that, you know? But it doesn't just stop there. Like, then we have to have the Queen's betrayal, followed by the sisters coming in and being turned into Fae. And then it just all goes to hell, and bad things happen, and, oh, God. The thing I will say, I don't understand why it was such a big deal for the sisters to turn fae. Like, I understand they had a prejudice against fae and they didn't want that, and I understand consent, like, that's bad. However, by the time they return, like, Feyre is just, like, so upset that they're fae, and I'm just like, you... Fae are awesome. Like, why would you not want to be prettier, immortal, and stronger? Like, why would you not want that for you and your sisters? I don't know. So then... It was just, I was, like, at that point, I was ready to throw the book. I was kind of screaming. I think I may have blacked out a little bit there. It was just rough times, man. And thankfully, I didn't predict anything at that point. Like, when the king shatters the bond and, like, everything was awful, I was in that place. I was like, this is the end of my OTP. Like, she's going back to Tamlyn. They're not going to talk. It's going to be awful. And then... the heavens opened, and we got a Rhys chapter, and he was like, chill, guys. Like, the High Lady of the Night Court is in Tamlyn's place, and she's gonna spy for us, and it's gonna be awesome. And I was like, oh, alright, I can deal with that. For, like, that couple chapters, like, 65, I think, was the worst, and 66 was pretty bad. I was just like, you've gotta be kidding me, Sarah. Like, this is awful. And I think I've read worse Sarah endings. Like, Heir of Fire was pretty brutal, and even Queen of Shadows was kind of rough. But this one was just unfair and mean and, like, crushing. Soul crushing. Because you have that moment where, you know, Feyre's gonna get separated, and she's just, like, mentally saying goodbye to everybody, and they're, like, looking at her, and she's like, I know from their faces that they understand, but it's still hard. And I'm just like, dude. And then we have Tamlyn, who is just a complete idiot, who thinks, like, oh yeah, Rhys had her under a spell the whole time. He couldn't possibly be in the wrong. He's right here. But it was just so hard to read about my OTP getting split up. I mean, I am glad that he had the foresight of making her High Lady, but oh, it was rough. Like, oh, it was so mean, Sarah. So mean. And now she's in Tamlyn's court. I am still so excited, though. Like, the last line of the book where they're talking, they're like, Lucian looked at her, and then Tamlyn led the High Lady of the Night Court directly into his territory. And I was like, I finished yesterday, and I had all these feels, and I just, like, didn't know what to do with myself. And now I'm at the point where I have an appointment to go to after this, and I don't have a book to read. And I packed away the Fifth Wave, so the Fifth Wave is not at my house, and I can't start rereading that, because that's my next goal for The Last Star. But, like, I really have no idea what to do with my life right now. Like, how am I supposed to go on when Rhys and Feyre are separated? I loved it. I don't know how you felt about it, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be unhappy with it and not be as accepting as I am, but I learned, trust Sarah J. Maas. Whatever you do, best advice is don't doubt her, because she will do the best thing for her. It's my favorite of the year right now, and the only thing I can foresee topping it at the moment is Empire of Storms. And who is that by? Sarah J. Maas. And so I'm very curious to know what she's going to write next, because this ends next year, and Throne of Glass ends next year, and... like, I could see her taking a break because she has been pushing out books for the past however many years. But I also am, like, hoping that she keeps writing soon and that she has a project up her sleeve that she can just, like, throw out. I would love to extend this series, please, Sarah. That's my petition. Or write a spin-off series with Amran or any of them. Any at all. Because I think it's an injustice that this series is only 3 books long. Granted, I'm hoping the next one will be at least twice this size, so it might be okay, but I do think that it deserves more books like Throne of Glass. I'm curious to see what happens in the next one. We have to wait until my 22nd birthday probably to read it. If she's going by the release date she has done in the past, doing that like first Tuesday of May, my birthday, it's coming. So, happy birthday to me! Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had some fun in this book and you cried and you screamed, because I did. If you have anything you want to talk about in the comments, hit me up. I love talking about books down there, and you guys are great about leaving comments, so thanks for that. I guess that's it for now until Empire Storms, when we all die again. So, yeah. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!